Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the new screensavers is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
The new screensavers are brought to you by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/NSS. And by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost automated investment service and the most sophisticated way to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/NSS and sign up to get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/NSS. And by IT Pro TV. Enhance your technology aptitude. IT Pro TV is the resource to keep your IT skills up to date with engaging and informative video tutorials. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the life of your account, go to itpro.tv/NSS and use the code NSS30.
Rev up your GPUs. A priest walks into Mobile World Congress. And we like big maps, and we cannot lie. Live from the Twit Brick House in beautiful downtown Petaluma, it's the new Screensavers.
Screensavers, thank you, Pat from San Francisco, celebrating his birthday today. Mahalo, Pat. He's not from Hawaii, but he just looks like it.
Good birthday present.
Actually, his brother's moving to
We put
Hawaii.
him to work on his birthday.
I know. Isn't that nice? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Is this your birthday gift to be in the show? Yeah, happy birthday. That's it. It's as good as it gets. Jason Snell is here from the incomparable and sixcolors.com.
Hey, Leo.
Wonderful, as always,
Good to
have
be
you
back.
on the show. Yeah. Episode 42. This is February 27th, 2016. Yeah, big show coming up all week long. Padre was at Mobile World Congress with Florence Ion. Their report coming up in just a bit. Some stuff I really want. That looked like... I feel like Mobile World Congress is now becoming more interesting than CES in some respects.
Totally. Well,
Isn't it?
if you care about phones especially.
Phones and jamón ibérico.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that.
Best ham.
Good cheese, too.
And
good
cheese.
In Barcelona, yeah.
Manchego. I love it. We're building the ultimate virtual reality gaming machine. Jason and I are going to see the newest bit, which is, I think, the GPU. Ryan Schratt will be joining us. Alasdair Ray is going to join us in a few minutes. He is from the University of Sheffield.
That's right.
Where the steel is made.
It's the north of England.
The north of England, and he's going to show us how he makes maps from really cool maps from interesting data sets. I'm really liking this. Stay tuned for that. And then in our call for help, we go to Bangkok. But before we go on, I got to ask you, because we haven't had a chance to talk since the Apple and Department of Justice kerfuffle. Apple filed its response on Friday, the court response, and it's interesting because you know, we were all wondering, well, what is it that Apple's going to say to the court to convince it not to force it to unlock or help unlock this iPhone? And it turns out they're going after a First Amendment protection. They say this is compelling speech. They say code is speech. There are court decisions to back that up, precedents for that. And it is the case that the government cannot compel me to make an expression. I can't be forced to say I like Ike. That would be illegal. So this is an interesting defense I didn't really anticipate.
It's definitely in line of the Supreme Court ruling that said that corporations are people.
Yeah.
Not my favorite Supreme Court ruling,
No.
but if corporations are people, then don't they have First Amendment rights? There's also the question of sort of dragooning the Apple employees to write this thing.
They're
Can a
people.
court really give a court order saying, Apple, you will have to hire people and instruct them to do this work for you? They're trying everything out, right? They've got a whole line of defenses that they're trying here to point out that they shouldn't have to do this.
Did you see Tim Cook on ABC?
I did.
He did a big long interview in his office, first time he's ever done an interview in his office. He said writing this software to help the FBI unlock this phone is the equivalent of cancer. I think he's still pushing this notion, and I understand why he pushes it, although I think it's technically incorrect, that this software would be usable on other phones.
Right.
I think we know, because of the way Apple signs firmware, that Apple could make software. I understand why they don't want to, but they could make software that only would be usable on Farouk's phone and would never be usable again.
Right. Their argument, though, is that once they are asked to do this once, there's nothing stopping the government from asking them again. And the way precedent works legally, once you've had a precedent like that, they can cite it and say the FBI or the state attorney in New York can come and say,
and we know
they did it.
Cyrus Vance Jr. He said, "What did he say? I have 70 phones."
Yeah.
I'm
So the
ready
FBI's got like 7 phones. Cyrus Vance has got 70 phones.
They're all waiting, and absolutely, but I don't. American people, by the way, are, for at least the last few polls I've seen, are more in favor of the FBI. Than
Sure, of course they are.
Apple, because they don't really understand the issues.
Right.
And I think Tim did a very good job of saying why, in the long run, this is bad for your safety and security. It's about public safety, because phones that can be cracked into and broken into by bad guys would be a huge public safety issue. He kept saying, would you like people to know where your kids are? Your phone knows where your kids are. Their phone knows where they are. You don't want that to become public knowledge, do you? And I think that's an argument that the American people can understand.
It's tough because they're going up against people who are law enforcement officials, and they're making the argument that we're trying to keep you safe.
Right.
And this is something scary that we're trying to protect you from. And that is a powerful emotional argument. And Apple, I think actually Tim Cook saying this is the equivalent of cancer, all the computer nerds will be like, well, what does it really mean? I'm not really sure about that metaphor. But he's trying to give that emotional feeling, like if we insert something dark into the heart of your iPhone, then it's going to lurk there, and then somebody else will be able to exploit it, and that will be bad for you.
Right.
And so it's trying to play. It's a tough game for them to play, but they're trying to play the FBI's game, which is that emotional appeal.
Right. It's a highly technical argument.
Yeah.
The other thing we learned, I don't know if this is a rumor or fact, but it is something I predicted. Apple's real long-term response is to make a phone that can't be cracked.
Apple's arms race right now seems to be between Apple and itself. They're really saying we need to create something. You know, it's that old thing when you're a kid. It's like, could God make something so strong that even he couldn't break it? Or that's the question here: is can Apple make encryption and security systems so strong that they can hand it to you and then not be able to touch it after that? And right now, that's not the case. Like iCloud backups, it's very clear. Apple keeps a copy of the key. So they were able to get the iCloud backups for these phones because Apple had a key. They were old backups, but they were able to get them. But some of the stuff on your phone, Apple doesn't have the key. Only you do.
I should point out that right now, the real reason the FBI can go to Apple is because the passcode is a weak front door. Not a back door, but a weak front door.
Exactly.
It's only 4 digits or maybe 6 digits, but it's a weak front door. They're asking for help unlocking the front door.
Right. Not breaking the encryption, but they don't need to. If they can break the code, they can unlock the encryption. Yeah.
But it's very possible, at least on Android, you tell me if this is possible on iOS, but you turn off cloud backup, you encrypt your phone, and on Android you can use, and nobody wants to because it's a pain in the butt, but you can use a long password, and that's the only way you can open the phone. There would be no recourse for anybody, no new firmware or anything, because it's real strong encryption. The math holds solid no matter what Android does. And nobody can guess that passcode because instead of being 4 digits or 6 digits, it's a long, strong password. It can't be brute forced.
And in fact,
can you do that on the iPhone?
Yes, and in fact, Apple encourages 6 digits now. And if you've got Touch ID, I really encourage people to switch to a password from a passcode.
I worry about Touch ID though, because I feel like Touch ID is another potentially weak front door. We don't really know, but I worry about
that's one of the things that seems to have come out in this, is that there's some questions about whether Apple could create some custom firmware for the Touch ID sensor that would allow them to override that as well.
Oh, that looks like your thumb?
But the point is that for these brute force attacks, like what the FBI wants to do with this phone, if that was, even if Apple built this tool that they want them to build where it doesn't erase the phone after 10 uses, and they have a computer that can enter in the code so they can enter in, and there's no delay. Even if that was the case, if they had a 6-digit code, it would take weeks, and if they had an alphanumeric code, it would take years, tens of years, thousands of years maybe to break into it. So that's the simplest answer here. If you're somebody
and you can do that already today.
And you can do it today.
Turn off iCloud. I'm not giving terrorists help, am I?
No.
I'm giving you help to keep your phone private.
Or democracy activists in countries that don't have democracies.
You know, Denise Howell on TNT on, I think, Thursday really, I think, said exactly, pinpointed what the debate should be about. And this is a debate we need to have, and Congress needs to respond to, not the courts, not Apple, not the FBI. Should this thing, this smartphone, should it be possible to make this completely private or not? Should we allow encryption? I think the law enforcement sees a smartphone as a treasure trove of information.
Yes.
Your position, a microphone, a camera. This could be the best law enforcement tool ever if it were accessible. Should we say, oh, you know what, to help law enforcement, we're going to make sure that your smartphone is accessible? Or do we have, as Tim Cook said, so much important personal information that could be used by bad guys against us on this thing that we should all have access to unbreakable encryption on here? That's the public debate that needs to go on.
And the difficulty is that people don't understand how encryption works, and that's one of the challenges here is famously the Washington Post a year and a half ago did an editorial that basically said, surely the geniuses, no, sorry, they said wizards. The wizards at Apple and Google can come up with a golden key that only the government would have, and they would only use it in certain circumstances, which is a great argument until you realize that that's not how cryptography works.
Right.
And once there's a golden key, who knows who could use that key? And that's the problem. It is a difficult situation we find ourselves in, where you've got encryption that is absolute on one level, but the alternative is that it's broken and people can, and so basically it doesn't work. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a really great middle ground here technologically.
It's either good encryption or it's not.
Yeah. There's no way to weaken it that doesn't also weaken it for criminals and for oppressive governments and who knows who else.
Cook made another point. I don't know how resonant this will be with the American people, but he said, look, terrorists can use encryption. This is not going to work against effective terrorists. They can use it. The only people this really impacts is the normal person who is relying on Apple to provide security. Because somebody who really wants to know how to do security, as I just said, you could use a long password on your iPhone.
Yeah, and you can use apps that are end-to-end encrypted that don't are
Ricochet,
outside of.
It's out there.
Exactly right, and so that's part of it. Also, let's not forget that in this particular instance, the perpetrators of these crimes had their own personal phones and destroyed them.
Right.
And that is the kind of thing that somebody who commits one of these crimes is probably going to do. So yeah, in the end, who has all of their secrets available for the government or criminals? Honest,
law-abiding people.
Yeah.
And stupid criminals.
And stupid people, yeah.
And that's really what a lot of law enforcement wants. They know that the super criminal, the Lex Luthor, they're going to be hard to catch, but most crooks aren't.
Right.
Most crooks are dumb
That's
crooks.
why they're crooks.
And it's dumb to begin with. And so the FBI just wants to make sure it's not easy for dumb people to hide.
I understand. I mean, law enforcement, I get, it's sort of their job to ask for as many tools as they can have to do their job, because it is their job.
Absolutely.
The problem is that we need some other part of our government, perhaps it's Congress, perhaps it's the judiciary, to say this is too far, it pushes against other rights that people have. Because just because we want the police to protect us doesn't mean we want the police to have the right to do anything they want.
That's exactly.
So where do we draw
that
that line?
Yeah, and I hope the courts are well equipped to do this. I suspect if it goes against Apple, actually, I suspect even if it goes against the FBI, we'll see this at the Supreme Court at some point. Moving on, we now have the next web is saying not March 15th, but March 21st for the Apple event. That's a moving target. Apple, of course, doesn't pre-announce, but sometime next month we expect a new Apple iPhone, no longer the 5 SE.
The latest rumor is the iPhone SE.
That's it. And chiefly the difference there is a smaller screen.
Yeah, it's basically the iPhone 5 size is the rumor, but with iPhone 6 internals. The 5 is long in the tooth enough now. I think they want to get that technology out, have some, a better processor and all that. But there's some value in having that smaller screen. There are a lot of people, I hear from a lot of people who don't like the bigger screen phones. And, they're not the mainstream anymore, but there is still an audience for that phone.
And this is not, and Apple has never gone after a low-cost phone. This is not that market. They don't want that market.
It seems unlikely. I mean, this might be the 99 with contract phone. But it seems unlikely that this is, a cut-rate cheap phone. Their strategy for that is older models end up being the ones they sell on the cheap.
And the rumor mill, and we should say this is rumor mill. We won't know till Apple announces. They never say anything. But the rumor mill says it won't be an iPad Air 3 they will announce in March, but an iPad Pro Mini or something, a smaller iPad Pro.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I don't know.
It's so
it means
strange.
it works with a pencil, is what I think they mean.
Yeah, that's the rumor. The rumor is
no 3D touch, but pencil.
yeah. So that's the rumor. Is it's the size of the iPad Air, but it has the smart connector and it has support for the Apple Pencil. You could just call that the iPad Air 3, but this rumor is it's the 10-inch iPad Pro instead. What's the
fine.
iPad then? Why is everything in the iPad Pro except the Mini and the old models? I'm not entirely sure that everything needs to be Pro.
There's a fork in the road. There's
maybe
two
so.
different kinds of
Just
iPads.
like the MacBook is like that, right?
Yeah.
There's a MacBook and MacBook Pro.
Yeah. And rumor is they're developing a keyboard to work with the new 10-inch iPad Pro.
That's going to be, we're going to talk about iPad keyboards later, but that's going to be interesting because the iPad Pro is just big enough to have a full-size keyboard. So how do you do that for the smaller thing? Do you have it like get wider? Does it fold out? Or is it just like small keys? Because that's no fun.
Well, if anybody can solve that one, it's Apple. All right, let's get to our first call for help. You feel like
yeah.
I think you brought props.
I brought props for this one.
Okay,
yeah.
the carrot top of Mac.
That's right. I'm the
one
Gallagher.
Of the 6 colors.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Gallagher.
Watermelon green, carrot top orange, sure.
It's time for a call for help. Joining us now, I love this, from Bangkok, is Dom. Is that how I say it, Dom?
Yes, that's correct, Leo.
Nice to see you, Dom. Is it true, just before you ask us your question, I just want to know, is it true that one night in Bangkok is like a year in any other place? Is that true?
Well, I've never been a year in any other place, so
Oh, well,
I don't
there
know.
you go. You have no idea. I am dying to go
Gotcha.
to Bangkok. I think, is it beautiful? And it's warm right now, isn't it?
It is warm, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. I'm so glad you watch. What can we do for you?
Yes, Leo. Well, I love the show.
Thank you.
I've been a fan of many of your shows for, I don't know, the best part of 10 years now. Today I had a question for you regarding the iPad Pro, and in particular the accessory, the smart keyboard. And I mean, I love the combination. I use it for just about everything nowadays, but there are some shortcomings. In particular, the lack of keys for certain functions like media playback, screen brightness, volume control. And I was wondering if you and Jason thought that this was additional functionality that could be added in the form of keyboard shortcuts. Because nowadays, when you press the command key on the keyboard shortcut, a list of shortcuts that are available will come up on screen. And if this is possible to be added in an additional or future update to the OS, I was wondering if you thought that this could be done totally at the level of the OS, or if it was something that individual developers also have to include into the code for their individual apps. And the reason I ask that is because nowadays when you press the command key, the list of shortcuts that comes up is different depending on in which app you are. And you know, the additional functionality that I talked about earlier, it would be great if you could access that. You know, doesn't really matter which app you're working on.
Those are
might be a
excellent
Word
points.
document or something.
And I carry this one because it's so light. And I bought the Logitech Creative when I first got my iPad Pro because it had a lot of those function keys.
It does.
But I decided this was so much lighter. That thing is so big and heavy.
Yeah, it sort of turns your iPad into a laptop.
Yeah. So is this what you use?
I don't.
What do you use for a keyboard?
So I use one of these that we've got here.
Holy cow.
And
One of which is the regular Apple keyboard.
Yeah, so the short version, I would say, is if you're somebody who really carries your iPad Pro around a lot and you want to have instant access to that keyboard, the smart keyboard is kind of the only game in town. It's possible that Apple will add something like a function key keyboard shortcut. I think it's going to have to be system-wide.
It must be available, though, right? Because Logitech can do that.
So
it can brighten the screen. It can turn the volume up and down.
The issue here is the smart keyboard doesn't have the extra row of function keys.
It's merely the keys. It's not the connector.
And that's the truth about this is that there are are already system-wide keyboard shortcuts for everything you said, for brightness and volume and media control. Unfortunately, they're the F keys. And there are no F keys on this Apple keyboard. And so what do? It's possible they'll make it so that there's a keyboard shortcut. I wouldn't bet on it. So I hate to do this, but I think you should seriously consider if you might be better off with a Bluetooth keyboard
with F keys
and something like this or some other kind of stand.
That's the standard
this
smart
is just
cover
the standard
minus
smart cover.
the keyboard.
Yeah, because all of these Bluetooth keyboards I have here have the extra row. This is the Logitech Easy Switch. This is the Magic Keyboard from Apple. This is my old Apple keyboard, which still works just fine with the iPad because these are all Bluetooth keyboards.
And even when these like media playback controls that are designed for the Mac, that works on iOS as well?
They all work on iOS.
And volume up and down.
So only if you're comfortable carrying a keyboard around with you,
I get your point, though, Dan. This feature is built in. Why don't you expose that in function in the command keys?
So on the Magic Keyboard, there is this little globe button, which is supposed to, I think it brings up the emoji, switches the international keyboards. Maybe they could do a change, and Apple's still figuring this stuff out. Maybe they could do a change where if you hold that down and press one of the number keys, it turns them into F keys. That could be a function key, yeah. That seems to be, because on all of these other keyboards, that key is the function key. It is the function toggle. So I'd say there's a little bit of hope that maybe they're going to add that functionality down the road, but it's a question because it's on, if you want that today, I think the answer is consider a Bluetooth keyboard. The Logitech one is very light. The Apple Magic Keyboard is extremely light. The only catch is you can't carry it on the front of your iPad. You have to pull it out of a bag, which is what I do.
You've glued something on the back of this so that it will...
Well, this is a prototype of a product that isn't out yet, but it's just got a little stickum on it, and so I've got it.
So you could take the Wedge keyboard, the newest Apple Magic keyboard, and glue it to what basically turns it into something kind of like the smart keyboard.
Right, or you can just plop it down in front and use the smart keyboard. This is my old origami case that I'm using.
Oh, yeah.
That still actually works with the iPad Pro. They don't sell this anymore, and they don't sell this keyboard anymore, but old keyboards will work with the iPad Pro too. So I hate to have this be the answer that maybe you shouldn't use the smart keyboard, but if those shortcuts are really important to you, I think that it's worth considering how you use your iPad and if you might be better off with a Bluetooth keyboard instead.
So to answer, Dan, your question specifically, it is already built in. It's part of iOS. It's merely whether the keyboard manufacturer, in this case Apple, wants to expose it.
And they didn't.
Who controls what pops up when I ask for the function key helper?
The app developer controls what pops up.
So that's why Dom
when you hold down the
command
key. Yes.
Depending on which app you're running.
Yeah, and there are a few that are reserved for the system, like Command Tab will take you through the switcher.
So Springboard, the front interface to the icons on iOS, could, in theory, add those keys in the smart pop-up if they could figure out what to do with it.
They could do something if they wanted to. Yeah,
it's up to Apple, in other words.
Yeah, but it's not there right now, which I think it's a really weird omission, and it's one of the things that makes me not like the smart keyboard as much, is that it's missing that whole row. And I use those all the time to adjust brightness and volume and play and pause my music. Yeah.
So this is the only thing I love Apple, and I love Apple products, but you really, when you sign up for Apple, you agree to do it Apple's way.
Well, the beauty of this is there are plenty of other keyboards out there that you can use.
And they even did build it in.
They did.
But you buy the Apple product, and it's not like you can hack it. It's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no software you can install to add a global system shortcut. And app developers won't add it because it's already there. It's just not supported on this one keyboard.
It would be confusing if you had a function key keyboard. It'd be confusing. So at least, we got a solution for you, which is different keyboard. Is that better than nothing?
Oh, yes, certainly. Well, actually, I do have the smart cover and an Apple wireless keyboard, which I used initially. But after I bought the smart keyboard, it was just so much more convenient to carry around.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That's why I use it. I love it. But I don't I don't do a lot with it. I just it's mostly password entry, things like that. And it's fine for that.
I think it's a good feature request for Apple to say surely there is some command combination that would let us map those number keys at the top of that keyboard to the F keys.
Have you seen anything in the betas of iOS 9.3 that indicate maybe they might do that? Or?
I haven't. In 9.3, they've been struggling with getting it to work better, because in 9.2, the smart keyboard sort of was erratic.
Oh.
And in 9.3, it works a lot better. In fact, we also discovered there was recently a software update for the smart keyboard. When you attach it to the iPad Pro, the iPad Pro updates the firmware of the smart keyboard.
Who knew?
Who knew? So it's possible. It's totally possible. But unfortunately, right now, it's sort of an either-or. You either choose the Bluetooth keyboard, or you kind of forego those controls.
This is the strength of Apple, is that they decide for you what's best.
And if you don't get along with that, then it's the weakness of it. Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to know you're listening and watching in Bangkok. That's fabulous.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Jason.
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye. Oh, man.
I wish I had a
love
magic
that.
solution for him there.
Well, I think that's a good solution. And the fact is, these are really nice, light keyboards. I love it that you actually could put a case on.
Yeah,
them.
yeah, it's coming soon. From
Is that going to be a Kickstarter?
unknown, unknown. I think it's going to be a real product. It's just they're still working out the bugs, so I don't want to talk about it. But I love the origami so much that I want a replacement
they call it
for that.
because this becomes a stand. You just fold it in
you
weird ways.
fold it and then plop your iPad in there. But this one, you know, also we don't realize it. This Magic Keyboard, the new keyboard from Apple, is so thin and light that it actually is perfect to carry with you as an iPad keyboard. And people think that because the iPad supports the smart keyboard, they don't think about Bluetooth. And because these things come out with and are promoted as Mac keyboards, people don't think of them as iPad keyboards.
Any Bluetooth keyboard will work.
Any Bluetooth keyboard will work with an iPad, including the Apple Magic
And if you
keyboard.
buy one, get one with function keys.
Yeah, exactly right. And the Logitech one is great. The Logitech one's got backlighting, and it supports 3 different devices, so you can use it on your Mac, and then you can press one of those F keys, and then it suddenly works with your iPad.
I just got a new keyboard for my Mac with big clicky keys, and one of the reasons I chose it
I got one of those too.
is because it has a knob for volume on it. And
wow.
I didn't think I would use that, but I use it all the time. What is it? The DOS or something like that?
DOS keyboard.
DOS keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has a USB 3 hub on it. I mean, it's just, it's a lot of them. It's a $180 keyboard.
Yeah.
But man, and boy, you can tell when I'm in my office writing, because it's click, 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 click.
Yeah, I just got the Leopold FC660, which is it's a 10 keyless, so it's a really small one, but it's super clicky. And boy, it sounds great.
Not on a
like
podcast,
the sound
but every
is,
other
oh yeah.
time.
Well, I actually use the Logitech as my podcasting keyboard, because you got to have one that.
Got to have one mushy, quiet keyboard. Hey, next week it's Father Robert Balacer co-hosting on the show, which means we want questions for our drone maker, coder, geek guy. Here's how you'd ask your question.
Need tech help? The new screensavers are here with answers. Email your tech questions to newscreensavers@twit.tv.
Clicky, 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 clicky.
Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to find out about data and how data can make maps. We're going to go to Mobile World Congress, and we're going to add to our ultimate VR gaming machine. But right now, I want to tell you about Audible.com, my favorite. Been a member since 2000, the best audio bookstore in the world, 180,000 titles, science fiction, nonfiction. I've been listening to the Hamilton biography, getting ready to go to Hamilton. I want to see him. I don't have tickets. I don't have tickets, but I know I will get tickets sometimes in 2019, 2020, thereabouts. So that gives me time.
Ron Cherno's book is really good.
It's a long book. Have you read it?
I've read about 40% of it so far. It's a long book, but it's very good.
Story.
Very good book. Yeah.
And now when they begin that, I listen to the soundtrack of Hamilton all the time. I can I go, yeah, he did. And then with the I'm also listening to the new Neil Stephenson, Seven Eves, which I love. Did you see William Gibson has a new one called? No, that's not it. Zero History's not new. There's a new.
Oh, what's his?
Boy, I just bought it. I should know. You know, this is the nice thing about Audible. I can just go look at my library. Every book you listen to on Audible is now part of your library, which is great. It's called The Peripheral.
Oh yeah, I read that.
You read it? Is it good?
It's okay. It's not my favorite of his.
It's hard to, you write something like Neuromancer.
Yeah. Actually,
and then everybody's saying, why aren't you writing another Neuromancer?
Yeah, but pattern recognition, I think, is even better than Neuromancer.
All right. Okay, let me see. Now, see, that's here, so I'm downloading that.
All right.
This is the beauty of Audible. In fact, one of the things that happens when Audible listeners get together is exactly what you just saw. Oh, you should get, have you listened to? Oh, there's a great. So this is the beauty of it. I love Audible. I don't read much anymore. I listen. The Martian was awesome. In fact, Audible has sold now 4 echoes in my life because I want to be able to say to my Echo, read to me, and it does for my Audible book. Here's the deal. We're going to get you a free book right now, audiblepodcast.com/NSS, so you can see what it's like. These are books not read by some mechanical, automatic robot voice, but by real actors. R.C. Bray, let me just play a little bit of The Martian from R.C. Bray, is such a good narrator. You'll think he really is Mark Watney. In fact, when you go see the
Mankind
movie,
reaching out to Mars to send people to another planet for the very first time and expand the horizons of humanity, blah, blah, blah. The Ares 1 crew did their thing and came back heroes. They got the parades and fame and love of the world.
see, what happens is now that's Mark Watney to me. And then I go see the movie and I go, that's not as good. I saw in my mind, that's what audiobooks are all about. They're better than movies, especially with science fiction, because you see it in your head. I want you to get your first book right now, audiblepodcast.com/NSS. It's free for the first 30 days. That means you get a credit towards a book plus the Daily Digest of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Cancel anytime in that first 30 days, you'll pay nothing. The book is yours to keep forever. But I don't think you're going to want to cancel. I think you're going to discover a world of wonderful audio entertainment. They even do incomparable style, full cast,
Oh yeah, like audio plays stuff. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
They're not really plays, like The Help. You got all these readers, and it just comes.
Yeah, the
to
readers
life.
are reading the different points of view. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love it. Audible.com, audiblepodcast.com/NSS for your free book today. Let's see. Mobile World Congress. You didn't go to Mobile World. Have you ever been?
I have been.
It's fun.
You get to talk about that tapas and that jamon and and there was a trade show there too with some phones.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
I feel like after watching our coverage, and Robert did a great job with this. We had day after day of live coverage and then wrap-ups at the end of every day. I feel like this is actually the most exciting event now in the tech exposition space. It's really good.
It's drained all of the excitement. Well, not all. Much of the excitement out of CES because none of the phone vendors are going to make major announcements.
And it's not just phones. We saw VR.
We got the VR because it's tied to the phones. Yeah.
We saw laptops, mobiles. That new HP phone that is it's a Windows phone, but then it turns into a anyway.
Yeah.
Robert Balacer and Florence Ion
Flo.
were there. Flo,
my old buddy.
They have this report.
Thanks, Leo. We're coming to you from the Gaming Lounge on day 3 of Mobile World Congress 2016. And look who I ran into. It's that Flo, Florence Ion. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Flo, we've had some time to walk the floor. You were here even before the show started, working your tail off. Tell me, what is the trend that you've identified? What is the thing for Mobile World Congress 2016 that has really impressed you?
It's actually not a thing so much as it is, well, I guess it is a thing. It's press conferences. Samsung upped its game this year. LG kind of upped its game, but not as well as Samsung did. Samsung totally pulled out all the stops. I would have to say, I think they went Apple level. They really went Apple level. They had Gear VR at every seat, so you would just put it on, and they had bits of the presentation that woven with the Gear VR virtual reality. And there was that one point where you put it on, and then you took it off, and Mark Zuckerberg is all of a sudden on stage, and you're just like, what the heck is going on? Everybody's rushing to the stage. Mark's there talking about like the future of the internet and everything that's going on. It was just crazy. It was really, I thought it was unnecessarily epic. I didn't really think Samsung needed to go that crazy, but it was completely entertaining, and it was kind of nice considering the phone, the Galaxy S7. Like, it's pretty good, but it's not as much of an, it's not as crazy as it was last year.
And that's actually important because the press conferences are indicative of where the company is. And Samsung has now realized substance.
Absolutely.
Give me the gear, impress me.
Yes.
Don't do a song and dance. Actually show me what you got. Now, for me, I think the trend that I've identified is 5G. Now, 5G has been a buzzword for a while, but it's actually here. We have companies who are not just showing off their technologies, but actually demonstrating.
Right.
Actually, I stopped by the Intel booth. They have a demonstration where the entire booth is being run by 5G. They've got a light post that has their phased array antenna built into it. And they have laptops that are running off of that 5G millimeter wave 60 gigahertz radios. And you can actually see when you interfere with the beam, how it will do a multipath. It will try to redirect. So 5G is not just something that we're aspiring to. It's something that's being delivered.
I have to say, Intel always has really amazing demos, first of all, so I'm not surprised that they had such an amazing demo for 5G, but You're kind of selling me on it because I got to tell you, coming here, I was like 5G. We covered that last year. Who cares? It's not really coming, but that sounds promising.
Yeah, it's promising when you actually have a bit of technology that is, you can see it in real time, delivering on its promises, and actually working in the real world. They had the laptops not looking like prototypes, but looking like they had come off the assembly line. So go figure. So folks, here you've heard it from It's That Flo and from Padre SJ. MWC is all about cool phones with substance and greater connectivity. Flo, if they want to find you, where can they find your content from Mobile World Congress?
You guys can find me at pcworld.com and greenbot.com.
And of course, if you want to find Twit's special, just go to twit.tv/specials and find the last 3 days of Mobile World Congress 2016. Until next time, hey, Leo, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Padre. Father Robert Balassier, the digital Jesuit. We covered the Samsung event. You can see our live coverage of that at twit.tv/specials, plus 3 full wrap-ups at Mobile World Congress with Father Robert. I have to say, I'm surprised Florence Ion was not so excited about the S7. The S7 Edge, I think, is going to be the phone to beat in 2016, but we'll see. I ordered one. Can't wait to get it. Looks beautiful. See, new camera. There's new stuff.
Leo.
It's got SD card is back. It's waterproof. It's got a new camera.
It's
What?
going to be news when you don't order one.
Well, I also, and I'll sometime talk about this, which is the designer-y phone from Nextbit, the Robin.
Yeah.
I think this is actually, I really like it. It gets through the day, which is to me kind of the one thing Android phones are not so good at is battery life. And this thing does get through the day because it's a 1080p screen.
It doesn't look like every other phone either.
And I feel like a designer did it. In fact, if you look at the lock screen, it's very designery, very pretty. The guy who designed it is the same guy who did the HTC One. He was at HTC. That's why you got dual front-facing speakers and all of that. I think it's a nice phone. I like the color. This is Robinig blue. They call it mint. What do you think, green or blue?
Oh, I'm colorblind. Don't ask me.
Okay, good. So just say
green.
It's whatever you say, Leo.
Whatever you say,
so
Leo.
Robin's A.
Yes, sir.
And then they have a midnight. I like it. I'm very happy with it. Now I put my own launcher on it because I am not crazy about the launchers. This is the one that only has 32 gigs of storage, but has cloud storage attached to it. So when you don't use an app or videos or photos, it uploads it to your private cloud storage at the Nextbit servers. And then when you need the app, the cloud lights up and little lines go as it's downloading the app to put it back on your screen. You know what? I'll carry this for another couple of weeks, and then it's the S7, baby. Power. Everybody's raving about this Snapdragon 820, the new Qualcomm chip. We'll find out. All right. Ready for? I know you're an iPhone user. You don't care.
I am.
You just buy an iPhone.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
fine.
I don't have to think about it. I just buy an iPhone.
It's good to see. I'm actually really
Specs,
happy
who cares?
that Samsung. Last year's Galaxy announcement was we really want to be the iPhone. You can't do removable storage. We're going to really be the iPhone.
That was a mistake.
And it was a mistake. Who are their customers? They don't want to just have another iPhone, and they made the right decision.
They want to tweak it.
They made some changes this year, so I thought they were good announcements.
The thing to watch is the camera. I think Apple is starting to lose ground on cameras.
Well, the rumor is that Apple is working really hard on cammers.
Yeah, but that won't be till the iPhone 7. We'll see what they do in the
this
fall. That's all right. I'll be ready for a new phone.
That's how the arms race works, right?
Yeah.
Samsung does their announcements in February. Apple comes out in September. It's a beauty. Gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of things to talk about, I'm very excited about this. We're going to talk to Dr. Alasdair Ray. He is at the University of Sheffield in South Yorkshire, England, and he takes big data and makes pretty pictures out of it. Dr. Ray, thanks for joining us today on the new Screensavers.
Thanks for having me, Leo.
So how did you get the idea to do this? Are you a data scientist? Are you a map maker? What is your background?
I work in a urban studies and planning department. I suppose you could call me a planner or geographer, but I like making maps and exploring interesting data sets. And I often use data from the US because it's available and it's interesting. Yeah. And there's so many different things you can do with it.
You know, I think I've always loved maps. I mean, going back to paper maps, there's something about maps. You could see the history of the world in the maps they made from different eras. It's always been a really interesting kind of visual display of data. That's really what a map is, if you think about it. But with the advent of smartphones and Google Maps, we've all, and satellite pictures, we've all become kind of fond. I think everybody's gotten into maps. Now we add data to maps, and there's so much we can learn. So we're looking at a commute map. First of all, how do you get the data?
Well, that's an interesting story. The data is from the US Census and something called the American Community Survey. And I knew it existed, but nobody had put it all together. So there's about 75,000 census tracts in the United States. And when you take the origins and destinations, that creates a matrix of about 54 billion cells.
Whoa.
But actually, there's only about 4.1 million interactions. So it's not too big. But I'd never seen anyone take this data out of a database or a spreadsheet. So I thought, I had a new computer last summer. It was quite powerful. I thought I'd test it out. I'd done this for the UK, but the UK is a lot smaller. So I thought I'll try the United States, interesting data. And then I thought what I would do is do some examples from the Bay Area, because you've got 9 counties, you've got some hellish commutes, famous for congestion. And I thought it'd be interesting to see this. And there's a famous professor at UC Berkeley, a guy called Robert Cervero, and he's looked at all this. But the whole point of looking at it visually is that it makes it instantly accessible.
Right.
If you already live there, you know what it's like. But if you don't, it kind of highlights the issue.
Yeah, we do live there.
Yeah. In fact, it's worse.
We've been on that red line that you saw there from Sonoma to San Francisco. That's my... I made that trip several thousand times.
And some of those maps, there are limited bay crossings, right? So some of those maps actually don't depict just how horrific it is. That map actually does that we're looking at now does a little bit better. It's, you can't cross over the bay. You can't float over. Everybody's going around, and
you can't
it's
get any redder than red, I guess.
No.
We need a new kind of red to show.
Some infrared.
Yeah. So what kind? You said you got a new powerful computer. What are we talking about? Are these microcomputers? Are these mini computers?
Oh, well, no, this is just a 8-core, 32 gig of memory Dell Precision. It weighs about 100 kilos, but it's a laptop. But it's still a desktop machine.
Isn't that amazing? Oh, it's just 8-core. It's not that. But you really have a supercomputer on your lap now.
Yeah, I mean, we have at the University of Sheffield, we have a supercomputer called Iceberg, but my data is not big enough for that, so I have to just stick to the desktop environment. But basically, the other good thing about this is all done in open source software, so it's easy to replicate. I write up all the results, and anyone who wants to take the data set, I've put the data set together, so now anyone can do whatever they like with it.
So you mentioned the census tracts. Do you have access to other kinds of data? Because I'd imagine there are traffic sensors, and there's other data that's showing where the traffic is and where people are coming from.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, another guy at Berkeley, David O'Sullivan, he's been looking at this kind of stuff. You can get this kind of data from traffic counts, you can get it actually from tax returns as well. You can get it annually. You can look at all sorts of origins and destinations. You just need to know where to find it, and some of it's really well hidden.
Do apps like Waze or even Google Maps offer anything in terms of data sets that you can consume, or is that all kept private?
As far as I'm aware, you can't get it, but the only stuff I've done was Google. I did some stuff with the Google News Lab looking at search data, but it was a completely different domain. That was an origin destination stuff like the commutes data that I've used.
What have you learned anything by looking at this, or are they just pretty pictures?
Well, yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But
especially since you don't live here.
Yeah, it's less fun if you're stuck in it. But I think the key thing is if you take a data set that's got 4 million rows in it, how can you find the strange patterns, the long commutes, the stuff you wouldn't expect if it's just in a spreadsheet or a database? And you can see the stuff you'd expect to see, but the kind of map you'll see on screen there, that just kind of tells you where the cities are, but also shows you where the connections are. One of the interesting things when you do this, and the paper I wrote on this, I pulled out the mega commutes, the kind of stuff that has been written about by people at the Census Bureau, the kind of commutes that you get that are way beyond 50, 60 miles. You get them people going to New York City, those distances, but you also strangely get these weird lines that appear in the map from the east to the west coast of the States, or from from the Pacific Northwest down to places like Phoenix. So you can identify these strange anomalies and then investigate them. So it does give you an extra edge doing it visually.
Yeah. Well, I could see, for instance, that for some reason, a lot of people commute from Amarillo to Lubbock, which is a long commute. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. And there's weird ones where people commute. You know, they do it. They live, say, somewhere in Virginia during the week, and they seem to return to Arkansas. There's quite a few of those strange ones, and then you look more deeply and you discover it's to do with armed forces, those kind of things.
Right.
I had an old boss who lived in Portland, Oregon, and worked in San Francisco. And that was a heck of a commute.
But now you don't have airline data in here, do you? Or does it matter how they make the commute?
No, it's this is everything. So some people it's car, some people it's in the Northeast it'll be train, some people are flying. But I just mainly restricted it to 100 miles because beyond that there's very few.
Yeah. And you've been posting this. Your Twitter feed is well worth following if people aren't following you on Twitter, because you've been posting these maps fairly regularly now. I imagine that's how Wired Magazine discovered your data.
I think so, Wired Magazine, I don't think they do it anymore, but they did have a kind of a Maps Lab section, and Greg Miller last summer saw one of the ones I did. The kind of flow maps here, that's kind of a hobby of mine in a way. I mean, I've done a couple of academic papers on it. I just like to use interesting data sets. I use these for teaching my students, my master students. But it's also useful when we look at stuff to do with migration, or I've done global mapping of flight paths and all sorts of stuff. But there's a long history of this. I mean, it goes way back to the 1800s, actually.
How are your tools changing? Are there technological advances that are helping you? Are there new data sources and new mapping tools and new charting tools?
Yeah, well, exactly. There's tons of data available now, so the problem isn't getting the data. The problem is trying to figure out what to do with it. The software that I use is an open source geographic information system called QGIS, and that's really changed everything in the last 5 years. It's really nice graphically. It can handle large data sets. And the plugins, so for example, the commutes map in the Bay Area I used a plugin written by a guy called Michael Min, and he's just a developer who does it in his spare time. And that's kind of the spirit of open source. But so I'm just using the tools that these guys have made available. It wouldn't be possible without open source.
And it generates an animated GIF. What are we looking at? Is this SVG? What does it generate?
This is just a GIF.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's really neat.
Obviously,
I think we're just entering a magical age of big data and data viz. I mean, I think it's just about to explode. You do some political stuff too. I've seen your maps of gerrymandering as we enter this election year. This is the 2nd District, Texas. That's one district, which obviously, when you see it as you have done by itself, you realize how much they carved it up to make it vote one way or the other.
Yeah, that's kind of always used, and I studied urban and regional geography master's degree at Ohio State, and we had a guy come in and talk about the gerrymandering issue, and then President Obama mentioned gerrymandering in his last State of the Union address, so I thought I'd take a look. And North Carolina is always mentioned as being kind of the worst example, but a lot of people don't actually know what these things look like. So I thought, because the software, the QGIS software, allows you to automate the mapping process, I just set up some templates, colored them red or blue for each party, and just ran off a batch of them and made them available. And then again, Wired picked that up, and they thought it was quite interesting that people could see it, and that generated another set of comments and quite a lot of shares on Facebook as well.
You know what it didn't generate? A fish. We're still doing it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, you can see it. Doesn't mean you're going to fix it. Alistair, go ahead.
No, I think if more people are mad about it, maybe something will happen.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
I'm turning into a cynic.
Maybe
here.
data viz can help us there. I mean, I have definitely seen people do data visualization of trying to find algorithms of how you might use data to redistrict instead of politics.
Oh, you mean like along geographic lines or something like that?
Imagine
crazy. What a crazy idea. What are you, nuts? You must be a radical.
Yeah, I'm out there, Leo. I'm out there.
What's your Twitter handle?
Mine?
Yeah.
Sorry, Under the Radar.
Under the Radar, which is
Alistair Ray was taken.
Yeah, well, no, Under the Radar is better. And if you want to follow Under the Radar on Twitter, you'll get a lot of, thanks to Twitter now embedding images on their webpage, and even animated GIFs. You'll get a lot more.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I've got a GIF addiction.
Wonderful stuff. Yeah, GIF addiction. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
You have the GIF addiction. Well, it's perfect for this. So it's interesting that the open source software generates animated GIFs.
Yeah.
How funny is that? Yeah. Oh, you're also a drone fanatic, huh?
Yeah, I know, I like that.
Oh, I'll tell you.
It's good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Under the radar, but over our heads at all times. Alistair Ray. Thank you so much for joining us on the New Screen
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to talk to
Pleasure.
you. Thanks for the great maps. Don't you love maps?
I do.
Is
I
that
love
just
them.
maps, pens? It's
Nerds.
Nerds. Is it a nerds
love,
thing?
love maps and pens and fiddly design things, and
Maybe that's
it's all part of. They don't all love all of it, but so many of them love some of it.
We should do, maybe you guys will do it, a GIS podcast, a map cast.
That's interesting.
Just talk about maps. A data visualization podcast.
That would be. We did on my space podcast. We did an interview with a woman named Rachel Binks who does data viz at Jet Propulsion Lab, and her goal is to build better tools for the scientists who are piloting all these spacecraft, because the tools aren't very good, but now you can build much better tools than you used to be able to.
We find that at theincomparable.com?
That's on Relay.
Relay.fm/liftoff.
You can find that one.
Liftoff, a space show. How many podcasts do you do now?
Too many. I don't even want to count.
You do not know the number. People ask me that too, and I go, a lot.
I have 5 weekly,
Many.
and then there's some that are more than that.
Many.
And, there's too many.
1, 2, 3, many.
You lose count.
Coming up in just a second, we're going to go to UGM, the ultimate virtual reality machine. I'm starting to get really excited about this. And even though you're a Mac guy.
I'm an amateur at this. I used to be able to do it. Apple kind of doesn't let you put video cards in things anymore, but video cards have come a long way. I was looking at that box earlier. It's there's some cool stuff going on over
Let's go GPU with Ryan Schott in just a second. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. I just saw an article, I think it was in Bloomberg, about how investment officers and bankers are really getting nervous about Wealthfront because it gives you better investment advice and there's no human involved. But you know what? It does so much of a better job because it's got all the smarts of some of the best minds in investing. People like Burton Malkiel and Charles D. Ellis, over 200 years of investment experience on their advisory board, put it into the software. And the thing is, the software, unlike a human, is watching constantly to maximize your returns, to minimize your taxes, to make sure you get the return you want with the risk level you want for the time frame you're aiming at. This is the way to do long-term investment. And here's the best part, and the reason traditional investment advisors are really nervous. Now you could manage this yourself, but I could tell you don't, even if you know what you're doing, because it's a full-time job. You don't want to do that. And what I did is I set it all up, and then I forgot about it for about 5 years. Then I looked and said, oops, I probably should have rebalanced those. If I'd been paying attention, my returns would have been a lot better. Or you can go to one of those traditional investment advisors who charge you 1 or 2, as much as 3% of the money you have under management. That means you have to make 3% more just to break even. And in these days, that's not easy. That's why you need Wealthfront, because Wealthfront charges you not 1% or 2% or 3%, but 1/4 per year. 1/4. In fact, I'm going to show you how you could do it for nothing for the first $15,000. We hear from so many fans who love Wealthfront, who like it, that they can log into their Wealthfront dashboard or use the apps to see exactly what they're in. You can watch the trades being made in real time for retirement accounts, for non-retirement accounts. Yes, they support IRAs and 401k. You can roll your 401k over. They even do Roth and SEP IRAs. You could set up a joint account or even a trust account and get maximized returns, minimized taxes. It is incredible. Now, here's the deal. And look at the diversification you get. I mean, this is amazing. So what you can do right now, I want you to read about it. I'm not going to say go do it, but I want you to read about it. Wealthfront.com/NSS. Find out all about it. The Nobel Prize winners they have on their advisory board. They are really doing it the best. If you go there right now, you just answer a few questions about your time frame, your how you feel about risk, whether you could take it or don't want it. They will give you a recommended profile. That's free. So you can see exactly what they would invest in for you. And better than that, you can get started for as little as $500. So if you want to just dip your toe in it, you can. And for the first $15,000 of your investment at wealthfront.com/NSS, they'll charge you nothing forever. Not 1/4%, but zero forever for the first $15,000. That's like a free head start. That's like, go ahead and run the race. We'll fire the gun in a minute. Wealthfront.com/NSS. No trading fees, no hidden fees, no advisory fees, except for that 1/4%. I think it's a great deal, and it's a great way to grow your money for any long-term investment. Check it out, wealthfront.com/NSS. We thank them so much for their support of the new screensavers. Are you ready to get building? It's time for the ultimate virtual reality gaming machine. Jason Snell, you know what we're up to here? This is so exciting. We are building a spare, mostly no expense. I mean, it's not going to be like, on wheels. Ultimate virtual reality gaming machine, because we're planning for the Oculus Rift to arrive, I think May. I don't know. I think that's what they told me. I got 2 on order. Yeah. Ryan Shroud is helping us do this from PC perspective. And of course, Ryan's been the king of this all along with his hardware leaderboard. You've been doing, how long have you been doing that, Ryan?
Oh man, it's got to be like 8 years.
Yeah. So I know it's long enough because I haven't built a PC in a while, but when I built PCs, I would always go to the hardware leaderboard to figure out which processor, which motherboard. Well, we've done the motherboard. As you know, we got this great ASUS Z170 series motherboard. I've already mounted the Intel Core i7 CPU in it, the unlocked 6700K. But the next most important component, actually one might argue the most important, for an ultimate gaming machine and a VR machine, is the GPU. Now this one threw up a little conundrum for us, Ryan. Would it be smart, since we know that NVIDIA is coming out with a new platform, the Pascal platform, in June, to cheap out and buy just the minimum GPU, expecting to swap it out for Pascal? What do we know about Pascal?
We don't know. I mean, what we know about Pascal is that it's going to use a new memory architecture called HBM, high bandwidth memory, at least some versions of it, probably the higher end versions of it. It's similar to what, if you look at the AMD Fury X and Fury cards that ship today, they use HBM Generation 1. And it's kind of, it improves bandwidth considerably. It lowers power requirements considerably, but it's limited in that the implementation only allows you to go up to 4 gigabytes of memory on the graphics card. HBM2, I think, increases that to 16 or 32 gigs, so it gives you a little bit of headroom to move forward a couple of generations with that. And so Pascal will be out probably middle of this year.
That's the problem. We don't know when.
Yeah, and it's also, it's possible that maybe only the mobile version comes out first, right? And we also have the same thing with on the AMD side. The AMD Polaris architecture is the name of their upcoming architecture. They've talked about it being a Q2 part as well. But again, the only thing I have seen demoed and know about for that architecture is kind of a mid-range, high-end mobile gaming parts. We don't really have info on the
So
kind of flat.
You talked me into not waiting.
That's usually my argument. I know it's different for everybody, right? In PC building, if you want to, you can always wait.
Right.
And so then you get into this pattern of never buying a product.
Right.
Or never buying the best product that you can afford at the time. You're like, oh, I'll save a little bit of money and wait a little bit.
The minimum requirement, according to Oculus, is a 970.
Right.
Do you feel like that's not enough?
It's really hard for me to say for sure yet because we don't know what the games are.
Right. Well, we know 2, Eve Valkyrie.
Yeah.
And some kids game, it looks like.
Yeah. And
you know what? I didn't tell you this, but now I'm going to tell you what the real criterion is. When the last Ultimate Gaming machine we built, which was almost 10 years ago, Colleen built us one, we wanted to be able to run Crysis at everything maxed out. I'm thinking, I don't know, I have no inside information, that No Man's Sky will be a VR, an Oculus VR title. It looks so awesome. This is the one where there's 19 billion
the
unique
procedurally
worlds.
generated worlds,
So every world is unique, has different flora and fauna, and you get to explore it. It looks incredible, and it's very much a look around kind of a game. What a perfect game for VR. So I'm going to just put a flag in the sand and say we want to run No Man's Sky.
Okay. I mean, I honestly don't know what the graphical requirements are going to be. It looks really good. I don't know how much of that is stylized versus how much of it is kind of really like technically difficult stuff to do on the GPU.
It doesn't look that hard, does it? It looks a little stylized.
It does look stylized, but there is a significant draw distance, right? So you can see very far.
That's a lot of voxels, in other words.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
All right, so is this the top of the line currently available? We decided to go with a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 980, and we're getting the titanium version.
So this is, the 980 Ti is the highest end single GPU purchase you can make.
Why not
now.
SLI? Why not dual GPU?
That's also an interesting discussion, and I caution against it because I don't yet know what the multi-GPU scenario is going to be for VR.
Right.
It will work differently than how SLI and Crossfire work today. It's possible that you'll see one GPU per eye, and it will be mapped very easily. However, there will be the possibility of some complications with that, where the memory systems need to communicate faster between them than is currently enabled, and you get into a whole different argument when you get into DirectX 12, which I think we'll see a lot of VR games kind of moving towards later in the year.
So we're almost saying this is the best card that we know will work properly with the Oculus.
Yeah, what I didn't want to do was recommend buying two cards and then when the VR games start to come out in the middle of this year, see that a lot of them aren't taking advantage of the second GPU
There's
at
no
all.
reason we couldn't buy a second one of these.
No, yeah, absolutely. The motherboard, the system, everything we've picked will support a second card.
Now, why did we get ASUS? So NVIDIA is a fabless designer. They design a chip and then other people make them. So you can get NVIDIA cards from a lot of people. Why ASUS? It's the same company as the motherboard. Is there a reason?
I mean, I don't think you don't necessarily need to pair your motherboard with your graphics card or anything like that. I liked this particular card because the way GPU vendors differentiate now, the way graphics card vendors differentiate now is when you get into the cooler and the design styling of it, right? So this has very big cooler on it. It's going to have a lot of heat pipes. It's got a triple fan design. It is meant to run very quietly. The logo on that box is an owl, which is to signify the fact that it runs quietly. And that's what the Strix brand from ASUS generally refers to. These are our coolers that operate with the kind of lowest sound levels.
So this is a Strix card.
You also usually play games at night, so that's good for owls.
Right, yeah, the vision will help.
I didn't really catch on the fact that the owl meant it was a cool card.
Well, you know.
Our quiet card. All right, here we go. So I'm opening her up. I'm going to let you put it in, Jason. Have you ever built a PC? I know you're a Mac guy.
Well, this is I was going to say, on the Mac side, Apple now has gotten to the point where you can't choose anything.
Can't do anything.
About not even the Mac Pro is really I used to install, back when I had one of my old Power Mac G5 and G4, I installed video cards in those, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you. Oh gosh.
Man, I'm going to ruin your.
How much of this?
This is the best part of technology right here.
here.
Taking a big board out of a box.
Holy cow! Is this thing huge? Is that all heat sink, Brian?
Yep.
Oh my God. 3 fans.
It's like bigger than the computer.
You get triple fan. You can see like the giant heat pipe along the bottom of the card there as well. You've got several of them. That helps distribute the heat from the GPU out to all the fins on the sides. The fans, like I said, 3 of them means they can rotate slower, get enough airflow for you.
Wow, look at that.
You've got a huge
back. That's like a 58 Chevy.
That is a hot rod.
Right
that is a V8.
Jeez. Holy
the back plate on it is nice. It helps protect the components on the back, which and a lot of times is kind of like the first thing somebody will accidentally nick off of their hardware. And then that red thing in the middle they call a GPU fortifier, and there's a reinforcement frame on there. It's basically meant because the card is so big and heavy. When you install it in the system, it keeps the PCB from flexing at all, right around. So
this is a damn sexy beast. Let me take the protector off the. And this is PCI Express.
Yep. All PCI Express by 16, 3.0. You know, everything has been like that. You've got your SLI connections on the top. If you do decide to add in a second,
figure out where it goes, Jason. Where the hell does it go?
Well, it's got to be one of these.
Top PCI Express slot, the one closest to the CPU. No, the one closest
this one's the top one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me pull that back so you can lock it in. And then the back plane is this way, so you're going to put it back plane that way. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have the
Oh
Mac
man,
guy
this
install
thing
the
is
video card.
huge. This thing.
It's not really gonna fit in the board because the is sitting flat.
Well,
but you can that's basically the placement.
Close enough, because we're going to have to take it out to put this all in the case.
Sure, in the case.
Is the case next?
Yes.
And we have some special stuff with the case. We didn't pick just some off-the-shelf, cheap Taiwanese clone case. We got a good one.
This thing just dwarfs the motherboard. It's amazing.
It actually looks like there's more going on in the GPU, which is probably the case.
Yeah,
actually. Ryan Shrout, PCPer.com, PC Perspective, and the host of This Week in Computer Hardware on Thursdays on Twit. Thank you for helping us build the ultimate VR gaming machine.
Absolutely.
I don't even care.
I want it.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Our show today brought to you by IT Pro TV. I love these guys. They actually started, Tim and Don have been doing IT training for a long time, but they saw what we were doing with Twit. They went to a panel I moderated at the NAB show about 3 years ago, and they got inspired. They said, you know, a good way to do this IT training to help people get their IT certs or keep their IT skills up would be kind of like what Leo does at Twit, only for IT. And that's what they're doing. In fact, they've really kind of lapped us. They've got 2 studios now. They do 50 hours of programming, a total of 1,000 hours of courses in their library on everything: A+, CCNA, MCSA, Amazon Web Services, Apple Certified Support Professional, Google Apps for Work Administrator. They've got great courses, the Certified Ethical Hacker courses, encryption courses. I got an email from a law enforcement officer says, I need to learn about Wireshark because I'm going to be part of the forensics and team and stuff, and I need to learn about Wireshark. I said, no problem. They've got a course on it. IT Pro TV. A couple hours, in fact, on using Wireshark. This is a great resource for anybody who is in IT or wants to get into IT. And because they have a no hassle cancellation policy, you can take it as long as you need it, but no longer. The price is right. You pay one low monthly fee or yearly fee if you want to even save more. In fact, I'm going to tell you how you can get it down to the rock bottom. Normally it's $57 a month, $570 a year. If you want, you could try it free right now for 7 days and get 30% off forever. If you go to itpro.tv/NSS, the offer code on this is NSS30. NSS30. That makes it less than $40 a month. That's less than one book. Or $3.99 a year. That's less than like a half day of technical school. Those things are expensive. They're expensive. This is the best way to learn. You can put it on your Roku, on your Chromecast, on your laptop. When you pay by the year, you can download them and watch offline on your tablet. Couldn't be a better way to learn. New courses include Cloud Plus and Active Directory in Azure, Excel 2016, and they're just doing the Cisco ASA Express security training right now with Todd Lamley. You can watch free. They have a free account, lets you watch free anytime, but you have to watch live. By the way, they have chat rooms just like we do. They have Q&A sessions, study sessions. They have all sorts of tools to make it easy for you. The Transcender practice exams, those would normally be $109. They're bundled in for free. They've got virtual machine labs, so you don't have to have Windows. You don't even have to have server or anything. All you need is an HTML5 browser, so you can learn how to configure Windows servers. I can go on and on. Why don't you try it? itpro.tv/NSS. Use the offer code NSS30, free for 7 days. You'll save 30%. Rodolfo is one of our viewers who tried this, and I was really pleased. He told us that just a few months after subscribing to IT Pro TV, he got a new job as a sysadmin at a better company, doubled his pay. This could be you. itpro.tv/NSS. You're going to love it. I know you are. They're great guys. Our mailbag coming up in just a moment, but first, Natalie DeScala has a great trick for getting the best locations, and she should know, for vacation photos using Instagram.
Hi, I'm Natalie DeScala from O Travelissima, and today I'm here to share with you one of my favorite travel tips. I love social media, and one of my favorite platforms is Instagram. So I love to use Instagram to get inspiration for photography. So before I head to a new destination or a new hotel, I'll often check the hashtag of that destination or hotel or look them up using the geotagging feature and get inspiration for the best places and angles to shoot that particular spot from. For instance, I was just in San Francisco this weekend, and of course I wanted the best shot I could get of the Golden Gate Bridge. I went onto Instagram, looked up the Golden Gate Bridge under the geotagging feature, and was able to determine that going all the way up to the Marin Headlands was going to give me a great shot of the bridge, especially at sunset. So take a look on Instagram, see what other people are shooting, what angles they're using to get the best photo you can. For more great travel tips and advice, follow me on Instagram at Natalie Descala.
It's time for the mailbag. Jerry Wegley, our mailbag pusher today. Nice job, Jerry. Oh, look, just for you. Hey, how did they know? A little champagne split.
Very nice.
This is good. A lot of times I see the bums down at Walnut Park.
Cheers.
They got these in paper bags. They love the bubbly. All right, wait a minute. There's more. Oh, you know what this is for?
Oscar night, yeah.
Are you excited? Tomorrow night?
Excited is probably too strong a word, but yeah.
Are you mildly interested?
I'm always. Do
you not like the Oscars?
I'm always interested in the Oscars.
I
never
love
have
it.
seen enough of the movies.
This is the first year that Lisa and I have seen every one of the nominated pictures.
I've only seen 3 of the 8.
It's hard to do.
I struggled to see 5, and then they increased the number of nominees.
I know, it's 8
brutal.
now. It's hard. You got to work hard. But we take that seriously. We finally saw The Big Short last night. Because we don't go to the movie theater, so we have to wait till it's on iTunes.
Yes.
And you have to buy them, which is kind of a pain. But then I realized, why am I complaining about paying $15 for The Big Short? It would have cost me twice that to see it in the theater.
Right.
It's a big deal. Now I own it. It's a good movie. Which of the 3 that you've seen do you like?
I liked all 3 of the ones that I've seen. I saw the Bridge of Spies.
Great movie.
There's a bridge. There's
Awesome.
spies. It was pretty good.
Awesome. And you know, Mark Rylance is nominated because he was the Able. He was good in that.
He was really good.
I think he deserves an Oscar just because he's like, I love this guy. He's good in everything.
And then, Martian, Fury Road. Those are both great.
Good movies.
Yeah.
A couple of good movies. But you didn't see the one that's going to win.
Which is what, Revenant?
Yeah. I think Revenant.
Bear Attack.
I think Martian could be a dark horse surprise. Like because they don't like, traditionally they don't like science fiction on the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, Revenant, that's a lot of the people who did...
Iñárritu.
Who did Birdman last year, which won.
And he won last year.
So, really?
But Leonardo DiCaprio has never won in the award. And so he's going to win because he looked like his mouth was dry the whole time, and it was so unpleasant.
They got a CGI bear.
They had a bear.
It's hard, it's hard to survive a bear attack. It's harder to survive the CGI bear attack.
No kidding, because then they have to paint bites on you and
I know.
stuff.
There's a man in a blue suit who's mauling you.
Is it really? Is that how they do it?
I think that's how they do it. And then they do a motion capture replace. So, yeah, you have to be mauled by a blue man with little ping pong balls
that sounds worse than a bear.
Stuck to his body, yeah. I know.
Ew.
Give him the Oscar right now.
Give him the Oscar. Actually, wouldn't it be great if The Martian won? It deserves to win.
Or frankly, Fury Road, that would be mind-blowing.
Fury Road has not a chance in
Not a chance, but still,
in fact,
wouldn't
the fact
that be
it
great?
got nominated, this is the Mad Max movie. The fact that Mad
Max,
right?
Fury Road, yeah.
Was great. I think the guy should have been nominated who plays the guitar with the flames coming out of it. That's
Special
harder than
Oscar.
getting mauled by a bear.
Special Oscar for flame music.
Guitar music. And he's like on a bungee cord on the top of a truck going 180 miles an hour. That is not easy if you've ever tried that.
No, you don't have to tell me.
No, I thought not.
Brutally hard.
So
it's like water skiing. It's just very difficult.
It is.
You got to have
playing
balance.
guitar on a bungee cord while it's burning.
That's true. What about Matt Damon though? He had to go to Mars.
He had to go to Mars. He had to pretend to go to Mars.
There's no bears on Mars. No CGI bears.
Did he get mauled at all in that movie?
No,
I don't
there's
think
no
so.
mauling. That's why it's not going to win.
No, he grew potatoes. That's boring.
Yeah. Who needs to see that?
Do you have an email question you'd like to read?
No.
Okay, I'll read mine.
No, I'll read it. This is for you. It's for you.
Well, this is for me too. I'll start with this one.
Okay.
Leo, I know you've made the move from Android to iOS recently. That's not exactly true, but I'll talk about it. And would really love to hear your reasons behind the switch. You've given small snippets of why you made the move, but I'd like to hear the more complete explanation. I'm considering a move to iPhone myself. and I would value your opinion on this issue. So, have you always been iPhone?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
no temptation.
I had a Palm Trio before the iPhone came out.
My last phone was a BlackBerry Curve with a little trackball in it. I still have it. Don't miss that. I really don't. I even bought the BlackBerry Priv just to see it, and then I reminded me I don't miss that. I go back and forth. The reason I ended up with the iPhone 6s Plus, battery life, period.
Yeah.
And the reason I left the iPhone was the keyboard. I found it very hard on the smaller iPhones with that keyboard to type accurately. And with the bigger screen and the improved keyboards and the third-party keyboards, I gave it another try, and it was much better. So improvement of the keyboard and better battery life. But I still am frustrated by, I feel like the Springboard, the user interface, is aging.
It is.
And
they haven't done a lot of updates to that.
No, it's just it's an array of icons. You know, one little thing, I don't know, does this drive you crazy? You can only have one icon, one location for any given icon. So I would like to have the icons I like on the desktop, but an alias, a duplicate in maybe folders so I can find them. Why can't I have
Well, you can't move the icons to arbitrary
shortcuts?
places on the screen either. You can't say, I want this one down here unless there are enough icons to fill that screen. You can't just have 4 icons all
on the bottom. Right. All of that you could do with Android.
Yeah.
Plus Android, if you get tired of the user interface, has multiple third-party launchers. So you don't I mean, Apple could solve the Springboard problem by just saying, anybody wants to make a launcher, go ahead. But that's not Apple's way.
They're never going to do that, but I do think that they're going to improve the Springboard. They have to. It's largely unchanged since 2007 at this point.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But you're right about battery life. I mean, that has been the knock on Android for quite some time now. And with the 6 Plus, the 6S Plus now,
unbelievable.
Big battery, and then the low battery mode that they've got really kind of puts it in overdrive. So it's got that going.
I just want to get through the day, a travel day, a day maybe with poor cell signal, so that drains batteries and still be. And the iPhone 6s Plus seems to have enough juice to do almost anything for 16 hours. That's all I ask from when I get up to when I go to bed. I'm very interested. I mentioned the Galaxy S7. That has a huge battery in it. The improvements that Android 6 that Google has made, including the Doze, might make it better. But you see, this is really where Apple. The advantage of Apple's we control it completely philosophy comes in. They don't let programs run in the background. They basically say, fine, you're done.
Yeah, or they
Shut down.
might let you, but at any point the system can come in and say you're gone.
You're gone.
It just taps you on the shoulder and says you're out.
Right. And as a result, they have much tighter control over what the battery drain is, and that gives them better battery life. And that's a fundamental philosophy difference between Android and iPhone. I do love the customizability. That's the advantage of Android. And so I'll go back and forth. But you're right, I did make that switch. Also a great camera. Although, again, the S7 is going to be very interesting. F1.7, very fast camera.
I mean, really, the way Apple is designing its iPhones, its flagship iPhones, is this is what we think the perfect phone for you is.
Yes.
And if it is, then you should use an iPhone. If it's not, well, you don't have any other choices, really. You need to then look at an Android phone.
Apple's way or the highway. But for most people it is, and usually when people ask me on the radio show, I just say, get an iPhone. It's the default. It's the easy.
Yeah.
Unless you know you want something else for a reason, get an iPhone.
I think that's a really safe way to put it. Yeah, because with Android you could do almost anything. But a lot of people don't want to do almost anything, right? Just give me something that works. It's got the apps that I
get
want.
My mail, surf the web. That's all I want. What do you think of, have you used Google Now versus Siri? What do you think of Siri? I feel like Siri has not also improved as much as it should.
I think all of those products are kind of weird. Siri doesn't do as much as I think that it should. I'm kind of disappointed in it. They're talking about bringing it to the Mac now. But I don't know. Apple doesn't have access to the data sources that Google has, and Siri just doesn't seem as smart as maybe it should be. And some of that may be down to Apple's philosophy. Google does a lot of smart things with your data in the cloud, and Apple's philosophy is sort of, we don't want to see your data,
we don't want it.
Leave it on the device. But that data on a device, while keeping it private, is also not, they aren't able to do the sort of magic things with it that Google is able to do.
It's really interesting to see how, I used to play a lot of chess. Chess is like that. You make decisions early on in the game that will color the game for the rest of the game. And in a way, Apple and Google have made decisions in the earliest days of their operating systems that now, going forward, determine their future. For instance, you'll never get great music apps on Android because of latency built into the core of the operating system. that you just can't get rid of. So you can't get real-time performance apps on Android. You just will not get those, whereas iOS doesn't have that latency. And so there's a huge range of wonderful music apps on iOS.
Yeah, it's sometimes I wonder if they really made decisions or if it was just their personalities. Like Apple's decisions about iOS have a lot to do with how Apple thinks about the world. And so there's this question, did Apple set out to be the guardian of everyone's privacy, or did Apple just sort of end up there because it wanted to lock everything down?
Right.
But either way, they're there now, and you see it where you have those, like with their Photos app, you can do face detection on the desktop, on the Mac, but you can't do it on the iPhone, and the database doesn't sync, and it's not in the cloud. So Google Photos can process all your photos, and it knows who everybody is and what objects are, and it does deep learning. And Apple, you know, it's private,
don't want to know.
But all the processing happens on the Mac, and if you don't have a Mac, you don't get face processing because they don't do that in the cloud. They don't want to see it.
Right. Well, that's good. We have choice. And I really think I go back and forth. I don't think you'll ever see me settle on any one platform.
I know a lot of people who use the Mac and maybe have an iPad and have an Android phone, and it's fine.
Sure. A lot of Windows users use iTunes.
That's true.
Right? What do you got?
All right. This says, Leo, I've been using Google Opinion Rewards.
Leo and Jason.
All right. Okay.
Why not?
Well, thanks to Matt at Leeds. We're back in the UK.
Back in the UK, in the north of
Google
England.
Opinion Rewards to build up some Google Play credit in return for answering short surveys. Over the course of a few months, it's paid out enough for a movie rental or two, which is great. Is there an equivalent for iOS that earns iTunes credit that I can spend on apps? It needs to work in the UK, not just in the US, be warned.
Oh,
Matt
now.
in Leeds.
Do you know of anything like that? Do you know about this Google Opinions? It's funny. You take a survey.
You take a survey. How do you find people to take surveys? One way is that you create a survey panel and then compensate them, and that's what the Google Opinion. Unfortunately, it means all your surveys are from people who want to take surveys.
And it's another privacy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Apple does not want to get in that business.
They're potentially aggregating the data. There is a way, I mean, the way that I do this is you can earn money for linking to apps and songs on
affiliate
and it's affiliate revenue. And Apple, it's not as well known as like the Amazon affiliate program, but there is an Apple affiliate program. You can sign up for it if you've got a website and you're linking to apps or music on Apple Music or movies in the iTunes store. You can do that. You can sign up for an affiliate.
Do you do that on 6colors.com?
Yeah, I do.
That's a great. We should do that. We do it with Amazon.
Right. And there's if you've got a website, there's some JavaScript stuff you can install that'll automatically rewrite all your iTunes links into affiliate links, but you do have to sign up. So but that only works. I mean, it's not the same as taking surveys, but it is one way if you're interested in making money from Apple stuff to link to it. It's not quite the same.
And I'm sure that works in the UK. Here's something, and I don't know if this works, but this is what Lisa does. SurveyMonkey, we all know SurveyMonkey. They let you generate surveys. Well, if you go to contribute.surveymonkey.com, and you could do this on your iPhone because it's just a website, you sign up and you take a survey, and then they donate it to charity, not to you, not to your iTunes account. Lisa does this for the ASPCA or the Humane Society, something like that, yeah. Are you the primary grocery shopper? You know, yes or no is such a binary choice. I'll say yeah. Lisa's looking right at me. We split it 50-50. I shopped yesterday. Have you bought blue cheese in the last 12 months?
That doesn't, it's blue when you bought it or blue later in the refrigerator?
Gosh, I don't think I have bought blue cheese because I love it, but Lisa won't let it in the house. So I'm going to say no, and watch what happens now. They're going to say, well, screw you.
Thank you very much.
I don't need your information.
For completing this, sir.
Because this was clearly the Blue Cheese Association of America wanting to know more about blue.
You're making them cry. Making the blue cheesers cry.
I love blue cheese, but Lisa won't let it in the house. I have to go outside and sneak it. Just have a little nibble of a little Roquefort. And then sneak back. And I use a little Sensen or Listerine to hide it.
Sure.
Yeah. You ever sneak blue cheese?
No, my wife is the blue cheese addict in our house.
She's probably sneaking it.
No, I let her have it. I let her have it.
Sneaky blue cheese.
She can have all the blue cheese she wants as long as I don't have to have it.
Jason, always a pleasure. The Incomparable
Pleasure to be here.
Radio plays and other great podcasts at theincomparable.com.
Yep.
6 Colors is your great website.
Thank you.
Really stunning, brilliant, as not surprising, coverage of the Apple scene because it's got 6 colors, right?
Yeah, little rainbow.
Jason Snell and Dan Morin do a great job. They do a bunch of podcasts there as well. 6colors.com. Thank you, Jason, for making your way up the coast.
It's always a pleasure to be on the new Screensavers.
You know, we could soon? No, not yet.
I was on the old Screensaver, so it's good to be on the new one.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you later. Pretty soon, we can get rid of that new, I think. Although I think it's good to make the distinction, right?
For those of us who remember the old Screensavers,
Right.
absolutely.
It's not the old one, it's the new one. Thank you all for joining us. We do the show every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2300 UTC. You can watch live, always fun, because you get to see all the silly stuff that we cut out later. The swearing, the cursing, the stomping, the storming out, coming back later with my tail between my legs, all of that stuff. If you don't want to see that, though, there are on-demand versions available at the website, twit.tv/NSS, or on YouTube, youtube.com/I don't know what, the new screen. Go to youtube.com/twit. What is it? New Screensavers. New Screensavers. That makes sense. Or youtube.com/twit, because we have all links there. And, of course, your favorite podcatcher. We're on all of them, including Stitcher and Overcast and all of that. And Pocket Cast. And, of course, Twit apps. There's lots of them. We didn't write any of them. They're all written by great third-party developers. And on every platform you can imagine, everywhere, just look for a Twit app, subscribe, and then you won't miss an episode. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next week on the new Screensavers. Bye-bye.